If you have a candidate that is openly advocating for the destruction and mutilation of innocent human life as a core component of their political platform, that's probably not someone as a Christian, regardless of what political party they claim, you should vote for.
We do not think you can legislate someone into heaven, but you can legislate in such a way as to save our society from living in hell. All right, well, welcome to the Strong Man Nation podcast. A super, super fun treat for us today. I am with Nick Freitas. Did I say it right, Nick?
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. We've been dear close friends for all of, I'm looking at 3 minutes here.
3 minutes, yeah. No,
Yeah.
It's, we've been through a lot in that 3 minutes.
We have. I appreciate your friendship, the steadiness of it, the long suffering of it. It's been great. So, Nick, welcome to the show. Thanks for being willing to cram us into your crazy schedule. I'm sure it's very, very busy. We're glad to have you.
Oh, gosh, entirely my honor. Except that I understand that you're friends with that John Lovell guy. So, other than that, you seem like a decent human being.
He's actually gonna be at my house in 2 days for a whole week. So I plan on ambushing him at the front door with a pillow in classic Nick Freitas style.
You should.
Yeah.
I just think it's wonderful that you would let just about anybody into your home. That's incredible. That speaks of your Christian charity.
Well, sometimes you're just drawn to that stray cat. And you just feel like the Lord.
Don't feed him.
No, he talks often about you, and it's nothing good.
Yeah. Well, that's because he's a jealous individual, but I think God is working on him for that. It's tough being certain people's heroes. That's. So John, I got to tell you this real quick. John Lovell and I, the first time, we actually met at Homesteaders of America, and I always loved John's work. But then the first time we went on stage together, it was at Great Homeschool Conventions, and they asked us to do a thing on dangerous dads. And I think we did all of 45 seconds of prep work.
One of you would know what that means.
Yeah, me. And then all of us we did about 45 seconds of prep work, and then we get on stage, and the first 15 minutes is us just hazing each other. And then John's like, we're going to have to actually do the talk. I'm like, yeah, the talk. Oh, there's people here.
There's people here. Yeah.
Well, we love John and Rebecca. They're great people.
The problem with John is whenever he's in my house, I just can't get him to stop talking about his hair. He's pretty proud of his hair,
man.
And so, other than being completely full of himself, he's a great guy.
Yeah, excellent human being.
Funny, we met John and Becca on a War Poet Society trip during COVID. And I was like, I gotta get out of this state. I feel like I'm living in communist Russia, and I'm gonna do something that's gonna land me in jail, which actually we were doing a lot of at the time. So we went on this tour, and about day 2. You're just kind of drawn, it's like mind, like heart. And day 2, we're in a cab in Paris in the rain with my wife and John and Becca and their boys, just having the time of our life. And we've been fast friends ever since. They're wonderful people.
And their boys are so great, man. Just the nicest, most polite. I mean, they're wonderful.
Yeah. We love those boys. So a lot to get into. I want to talk politics. I want to talk Christian nationalism. I want to talk, my guys just showed me something about, you chuckled. Oh, dude! Christian nationalism is a real and present danger and threat to our democracy. This is it's
gonna destroy us all. I just got this at Homesteaders of America. We were down to the last 2 questions, and they're like, "All right, we've only got a couple more minutes. Please make your questions brief." And somebody got up, and they're literally right after they were told that, they said, "What are your thoughts on Christian nationalism?" And I was like, "Dude, there's no brief way to answer."
Yeah, make it brief.
So I went back and we spoke for like 30 minutes, and I gave like my whole definition of it and the whole deal. But it is the thing that apparently is the biggest threat to the United States at this particular time.
It's terrifying if you think about it. Christians praying for their nation to thrive. I shudder.
What could be worse?
Yeah,
what could be worse
when I think about Christians caring about their country? So especially since that has nothing to do with how we were founded.
No. Well, Tim Kaine, former governor of Virginia, current U.S. Senator for Virginia, pointed this out recently in the U.S. Senate, that to suggest that our rights come from God is some sort of crazy, Iranian cleric view of society. And then it took Ted Cruz, a Texan, to remind Tim Kaine, a Virginian, that based off of his definition of Christian nationalism, Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Mason, Patrick Henry. I mean, these guys are all from Virginia, right? Would all fall into Tim Kaine's definition of Christian nationalism.
Dude,
So.
make America Texas again is what I always say. Are you from Virginia? Are you in Virginia?
I'm a legislator in Virginia. I'm a state legislator in Virginia. I'm currently in the Virginia House of Delegates, but I was not born in Virginia. No.
You're still in politics. I thought you got out.
I'm not seeking re-election, so technically I am still in the House of Delegates until
I'm talking to a
January.
real life politician right now.
But other than that, I'm a pretty good guy. I talked
to my buddy yesterday. He said the reason Jesus wasn't born in Washington, D.C. is because they couldn't find 3 wise men or a virgin. Could you confirm this to be true? Okay.
That's probably, well, I don't want to confirm the virgin part. I mean, that would require a level of intimate knowledge that I don't want to have. But
hey, speaking of that, I think, do my guys have clip A ready? You offered, I think, scientifically speaking, some groundbreaking, earth-shattering a discovery in relationship to a cure for depression. And I wanted to roll this clip if the guys have it. Do the guys have this clip? And then maybe we could have Nick unpack.
Public service announcement.
I think it is so cruel that there is not a fast-acting antidepressant.
Really? The one my wife and I use works.
So
yeah. So my mug on there says my wife is my cardio, but my favorite part of that was the comment. My first comment was, the great news is you can get it over the counter sometimes.
See, those are the kind of jokes I can't make as a pastor, but if I have a politician on the show, he can make, and what makes it great is when the wives endorse it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So,
yeah. Tina's been asked that before. She goes, do you ever get uncomfortable? She's like, look, she goes, there are ones that he has done where he will show me first. I'll be like, baby. I'm like, okay. But for me, what's important, and my wife feels the same way about it. It is supposed to be a wonderful, incredible, great thing within the boundaries of marriage.
Yes.
But if married people are never to kind of, what's that? Oh, the fast acting cure for depression.
Yeah, we have people wondering what we're talking about.
It's sex between a husband and a wife, right? Like that's the that's the point here. So
we're
every
big
once in
fans
a while,
over here, by the way, at Strongman Nation.
Yeah. We every once in a while we'll do a little innuendo on there, just illustrating that this is a wonderful thing.
There's a way. So obviously, we both mutually agree that sex is a sacred gift from God given to a man to enjoy with his wife.
Yeah,
mutually enjoyment for the edification of both in the confines of marriage that allows it to burn hot and bright and powerful. And there is a way it should be veiled so it remains holy and sacred. And there is a really great way to talk about it.
Yeah.
Where it's fun and it's celebrated and you know and I know and there's a gleam in the eye and there's a happy wife sitting over there with a smile on her face. And I think you nail it, bro. You thread the needle, you do it well, and it's fun to know that that Mrs. Freitas is a happy wife. Dude, I don't think we have the clip, but you did one in the kitchen one time with your wife.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Can you remember what that one was? It was so funny what you said.
So here's what it was actually a response video. So the original video I did was I said, okay, look, I know this is going to cause some controversy. And I've never really brought up this topic before, but I'm going to now. And the question is, do I believe in spanking? I said, my answer is yes. I believe sometimes it can be appropriate. Like, for instance, whenever my wife drops something and bends over, I mean, I'm just going to, and then I'm like, and then I go, oh, wait, what did you guys think I was referring to? And I have this troll. It's this guy in Portland that just every day he has to comment.
They all live in Portland.
Oh, and he was talking about how offensive this was to my wife. And so my wife and I did another video where I'm talking about responding to Dave and how, again, and Tina walks in and just hauls off and smacks me right in the butt.
Yes, that's the one.
And I'm like, baby, this is the sort of thing Dave is talking about. This is not appropriate, right?
That's when I fell in love with Nick Freitas. I was like, any guy that gets spanked by his wife on social media, I need to be friends with. So how long have you been married to your wife?
26 years.
26 years. Okay. There's so many directions I want to go here. And again, this hasn't been planned, not scripted. I want to introduce you to anybody that doesn't know you in Stronger Man Nation. We're a movement of men who want to be protectors, providers, leaders, and lovers who wake up to kill a dragon and win the girl every day. First dragon being the guy we see in the mirror, and the girl we win every day is the one that God gave us to cherish. And so that's kind of a bit of our thing. You don't probably know anything about me or Stronger Man Nation, but I've watched you from afar and been an admirer and respect you deeply. And I have sensed a great, a kindred spirit and that only the Spirit of God can do in the heart of men. It's like, I say those things, or I wish I would say those things, or I agree with that. What is that? Well, that's the Spirit of God in both of us. And so I'm going to put you on the spot. We have a thing called Stronger My Nation Conference on Father's Day weekend. This year, the theme is freedom. I got a bunch of really good guys coming. I'd love to invite you publicly right now on the air to come speak to Stronger Man Nation on Father's Day weekend. Bring your family with you if you want. Check your calendar and we'll see if we can make it work. It'd be a ton of fun.
No, I'd love to. Yeah, please send me the details. I will, if I'm not already booked, I will make it a priority.
Dude, let's do it. So you're still in, I want to talk politics, Christian nationalism. I want to talk about what you're seeing in America today that is encouraging, what you're seeing that is terrifying. I'm in a deeply blue state. I'm not sure where Virginia is. Virginia red or blue? I apologize.
We're a bit of a split. We're a purple. We've been kind of moving blue as of late, but
like you had a good governor, right?
Yeah. We have a good governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general right now, but the Democrats control the House by 1 seat, the Senate by 1 seat, and we'll see what happens. We have off-year elections. So this year is our election for governor, AG, lieutenant governor, and the entire House of Delegates. That's all this controversy with Jay Jones and the comment he made about, wishing death upon, a Republican colleague's toddlers to prove a point. Like all that's going on right now.
Yeah, but bro, President Trump tweets in all caps.
That's right. It is one for one. It is one for one.
These are asymmetrical. These are symmetrical moral challenges here. So I don't want you to be too hard on Jay because he wants people to die.
Well, and they're kids. They're kids to die. That was the main point because that's the only way we're really going to come around to his way of thinking is if our toddlers, who he has met, by the way, die. Like this is one of the most bizarre things about this whole comment. Again, to bring everyone up to speed, Jay Jones, Democrat, running for Attorney General in Virginia. I served with him in the House of Delegates. He made this. It got revealed that a few years ago in a text message thread, he had talked about wishing death upon the children, the small children of former Republican Speaker Todd Gilbert. And the point is to get Todd to finally realize how bad it is in America. And when he got called out on this, he doubled down. It's not like he said, "Oh, I made a horrible mistake. I'm so sorry." No, he doubled down on it. And again, it would be, look, this is horrible no matter how it's done. But I guess maybe in your mind you can imagine if he had never met Todd, if he had never met his kids, if he had never met Todd's wife. Yeah, that wasn't the case. He knew all of them. And he still felt perfectly comfortable making this comment. And again, this is, it's just incredible. But that's the state of politics right now.
Yeah. So there's so many ways I want to go with this. Let's talk about, I want our community to hear your story as well. When you met Jesus, how you met Jesus. Your journey there. And so this is kind of a wide-ranging conversation between two dear, longtime friends. And I also want to get into schooling. I was homeschooled. We'd homeschooled our kids. We've started a Christian school here in Washington because not every family can homeschool. We're in a two-income state, and it's not by choice. It's average income in my valley is $56,000 combined household income. Average price of a house is like over $520,000. And so it's Democrats and progressive ideologies make communities and states impossible for the right things to thrive. Impossible. Like you can make more money as a chick working at a barista stand than you can a dude working like a legitimate job. Not that baristas aren't a legitimate job. It's just the tip thing and the minimum wage. It's out of control. So you drive men out, you crush families, you replace dads with government. And you drive all the businessmen out, so the only people left are those you can easily control. And that's what's happening in Washington State. And so one of my questions is to you eventually here in the podcast is, what do you do to flip a state? We're a deeply blue state because of 2 counties in 3 cities, and the rest of the state is red.
King County,
yes. So you're in politics right now. Why did you get into politics? Were you a Christian before you got into politics?
Yeah. So, my story real briefly, I was raised in a Christian family. My mom and dad split when I was very young. My dad lived in Southern California. My mom lived in Northern California. I spent the school years with my mom, summers with my dad. they didn't work out as a married couple, but they were great parents, and respectful to each other. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Met my wife in high school. We were going to a very, very small Christian school, like graduating class of 27, which is the only way I could have pulled my wife, is limited options for her. And so
in a moment of weakness.
Yeah. So I go off I enlist in the military, go off to Fort Benning, Georgia, and she writes me every day. I thought for sure, I'm like, there's no way this gorgeous blonde is sticking with me when I'm gone for, an infantry basic training. And she did. She wrote me every day. And I knew I wanted to marry her, so I asked her to marry me, asked permission for her dad and her stepdad. And they gave it, and she said yes, and we got married at 19 and 20.
Let's
and
go.
Immediately picked up, moved to the other side of the country where we had no friends, no network, and no money, right? Because I was a private in the Army. And through that process, we ended up staying in. 9/11 happened. I volunteer for Army Special Forces, do a couple of combat tours in Iraq. We have all three of our kids while we're in the military. I now have a 22-year-old daughter, a 20-year-old son, and a 17-year-old daughter who's about to turn 18. And that entire time, through war, through moves, through kids, through all the things you would expect, Tina and I just learned a lot about being married and being parents. And we try to share a lot of the things that we learned through that process. But the thing that made all of it work in environments where it really shouldn't have was our faith. And so I was raised a Christian. It's hard for me to remember a time where I was not a Christian, but it's easy for me to remember a time where it was not active in my life. And that represented a lot of my early times in the military, where I would say I was a Christian. I would certainly defend Christianity as a faith and as a belief, but it was definitely not an active relationship with Christ. And the thing that kind of really pulled me back into my faith was meeting strong men who were Christians. And that's important, right? Yes. I knew some strong Christian men, but I knew a lot of men in the church that I thought were just weak.
Yes.
And it was kind of this, I went to more of like a charismatic kind of church. And so there was a lot of emphasis on the emotion, and Jesus got treated like he was the lead singer of a boy band. And, I don't know, that just wasn't what I was.
Not what you were looking for. Not what special ops guy was looking for.
Yeah. And then I'm in SF, and I want to be a good operator. And all of a sudden, I have a neighbor who's a friend of mine who wasn't in SF, but he had been in Ranger Regiment before, and was in the military. Great dude, just a strong, solid dude, Anthony Brown. And then I had a team leader named Ryan Nienaber, again, solid operator. And I had a lot of other guys that I worked with that were great dudes, but these guys were strong Christians and really professed it, really proud of their faith and willing to live it. And they lived it in such a way to where it's not like they were chastising me for all the things I was doing wrong or whatnot. Yeah. They were really good operators, really good men, and unapologetic in their faith. And there was another guy I went through the 18 Fox course, same way. And a combination of things happened. Their example, and then understanding Christian apologetics. Because again, I grew up in that very charismatic, very heavy emotional version of faith. And so it was if you want a complete relationship with anybody, there's going to be an emotional component, and there's also going to be an intellectual component.
That's right.
And the intellectual component had been missing from my faith. And when I found it, not only did I all of a sudden have a much richer relationship with God, but the emotional side became stronger as well.
Yes.
Like I have a very strong emotional relationship with my Yorkie. But we don't have a lot of in-depth conversations, right? And then I have intellectual relationships with other people, but we're not super close. But I look at the relationship I have with my wife, and it is kind of that equal parts intellectual and emotional. Yes. And then I realized why God commands you to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your soul, with all of your strength. Because that's what actually fosters a strong relationship. And so that's and then got out of the military, got into politics. Originally I never thought I'd run for elected office. I just thought I would be kind of, helping with policy. I really wanted to help with defense policy because I was very frustrated with U.S. foreign policy after a couple tours in Iraq. And then as we got into politics, really felt led. I didn't want to run for Congress, but felt led to run, kind of put out the fleece like Gideon does, and been like, all right, God, if you want me to do this, here's the supernatural things I need you to do in order to prove it. Well, that all happened, and I was like, okay, crap, I guess I got to run for Congress. So I did that, and we were winning on election night. We were winning the next morning, And then we ended up an unmarked thumb drive shows up with a bunch of misplaced votes, and we lose by less than 2 points about half of the day.
That happens every year in Washington State.
Yeah. Oh, I was there when Dino Rossi had after the fourth recount. We're going to stop recounting.
Dino wins. Dino wins. Fourth recount, loses by 200 votes. We call it.
That's the one we're going to stop on.
It's mind blowing.
So, Tina and I went through a little bit, not a huge crisis of faith, but very much a God. Why would you have us do this if this was supposed to be the result?
That's right.
And then 2 years later, our social media and everything we're doing, talking about family and faith in politics as well, but family, faith, being a girl dad, raising boys, like the whole deal.
Yeah.
It's just exploded, ridiculously exploded. And I'm looking around the table, and the first person that we had that had helped us launch our first channel, which is called the Y Minutes, and then the rest of my team, from my business partner to our video editors, like I'm looking around going, I wouldn't have met these people and been in this position unless I had run for Congress in 2020.
That's right.
And I wouldn't be able to do what we're doing unless I lost.
That's right. Wow.
And so the once over the world to bring us to right now is the biggest thing I have learned about life, and I've had to learn it the hard way, is my goal is not to find some noble mission and then ask God to join me. My job is to be obedient to whatever God's putting in front of me right then.
Amen.
And so there we go. That's the once over the world.
It's incredible. When you were, you lost, and then did you come back and run again?
Well, I was in the House, so I was already in the state legislature. I won that race.
Okay, you won the state race. Okay.
Yeah, I won my state race. So I've been in the Virginia General Assembly for 10 years. I've been in the House Delegates for 10 years. No, I was running for Congress in 2020 against Abigail Spanberg, who's now running for governor in Virginia. That was the race that, COVID hit.
Is she the one that was just like, take all that fuel and energy
let your rage fuel you. Yeah.
Let your rage fuel, because that's what we want to hear from politicians. Yes.
Oh yeah. No, well,
Stoke up the masses.
Because when you have conservatives, prominent conservatives being murdered in front of thousands of people, and the left celebrating it, and then Jay Jones talking about how much he wants the toddlers of his political opposition to die, the message you really want put out there to the public is let your rage fuel you.
Yes, that's the responsible thing. Well,
from our former CIA operative, Abigail Spanberg. Yeah.
So 1,000 questions coming to mind. Let's go down the social media road. How many, I'm calling this episode The Man Behind the Mug. You like that? I thought that's pretty original. How did that whole thing start? And how many coffee mugs do you own?
Dude, I don't even know at this point. I mean, there's.
Do people send you coffee mugs?
Oh yeah, yeah. People send coffee mugs. Sometimes people send me coffee mugs. I'm like, that's very funny. Can't use it. I'm a family friendly guy. So we've got tons. We've got cabinets over at the studio. We've got ones in the background of the studio. We've got cabinets here. My wife pretty much was like, baby, I love you. And if you would like me to get me a larger kitchen to service all these coffee mugs, wonderful. But until you do, they're going to have to find another place to live. So I don't know. We're probably well over 70 now. So
are you naturally sarcastic, or did you have to work on that?
I was raised by a homicide detective and a nurse.
Okay.
I was taught sarcasm before I was taught English, right? Like English was taught to me in the form of, oh, you don't speak English?
Well, you speak sarcasm as a native tongue. It comes very natural.
Yes.
So here's a question. So you have a business that runs your social media. How does that work?
Well, no, what happened is I was just doing social media as a part of like being in elected office.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of floor speeches during debates that went viral. There was one where
the gun law speech,
the gun
Second
one.
Amendment. I watched it.
Yeah.
What year was that? Because I watched it when it came out. I was like, oh, I like that guy.
2018.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one that first blew it. We went from having, I think, 12,000 followers on Facebook to 120,000 almost overnight as a result of that. And so that pushed it off. Now across platforms, we're a little over 5 million. But
5 million followers?
Yeah.
So I mean, you probably never share this stuff, but to brag, to make you brag a little bit, like how many monthly impressions is that? I mean, how many people are seeing your stuff every 30 days?
I don't know. Like we average across all of our platforms and the so that's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Rumble, a couple others. It's probably about 2 million views a day. I don't know how many impressions,
Wow.
but probably 2 million views a day, roughly.
That's incredible.
average.
That's incredible, bro. So it takes the Second Amendment talk takes off. You jump to 120,000 followers, and then what?
Just continuing in politics, and we had some other floor speeches that kind of went viral. But then the whole like up on the, with my coffee mug out on the front porch, totally by accident. Totally by accident. We
You just
one day
stumbled into it.
my daughter back in 2019, I think 2019, I think is when she told me, Dad, you should start a TikTok account. I'm like, what's TikTok? And, at that time, people weren't as concerned about, the communists run this. So I started a TikTok account, and it started to do really well. It had like 100,000 followers within the first year, and then they shut it off. They banned me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is typical. So they banned me from TikTok. I'm like, well, I guess I like doing these short videos. I like doing these short little videos, giving people updates about what's going on, and then just talking about funny things like, crappy gas cans, right? And so I go on Instagram and I do the same thing. And it just so happened, like the first couple I did, I was out on my front porch with my coffee, and I did it, and I took a sip of coffee, kind of like that Kermit the Frog meme, and never meant for it to be a thing. And then the next several ones I did, everyone is in the comments going, dude, where's the coffee mug? It doesn't hit the same. It doesn't hit the same without the coffee mug. And now I will walk through the airport and someone will look at me like, I know you from somewhere. I'm like, if I had a snarky coffee mug, right? I'm like, yes, you're the coffee mug guy.
What's amazing is, dude, the planned or not planned, it's brilliant. And the coffee, like you're waiting for the coffee mug. You're like, yeah. Because it's like, that's going to put like the exclamation point on whatever you're saying. And then you freeze it just enough so you kind of got to look and you got to watch it again. That's all very planned. So my question is, so as someone who speaks for a living and has learned how hard it is to talk when the light on the camera goes red and your brain goes blank, bro, do you script those out? Are you reading a script?
What out?
Yeah, see?
Like the little reels and stuff?
Yeah.
No,
is that just cold turkey off top of your head?
Oh, well, I mean, it's not live. So like I'll think of something that I think is kind of funny, or I'll react to something, or I'll just have like maybe a story I want to tell about something that happened in the military with my kids. And I'll record that and I'll record it till I get it right? Or if I don't flood it. But typically when I go to give a speech or something, I'll think about what I want to say. I'll figure out like, okay, what's the theme? How do I want to start it? What are the main points? And then how do I want to end it? And then I'll just pray and be like, all right, God, I would love it if I wasn't embarrassed right now. But I tried to write out I remember one time I was talking on a fairly important issue in the Virginia House of Delegates, and I wanted to hit certain points. And so I wrote it out, and it messed with my whole delivery. Yeah. And so I've pretty much just come to the reality that if I'm going to go talk about something, I just better be ready to talk about it. And so I spend a lot of time reading and doing research and studying things and listening to, debates and discussions. But no, I don't do like our podcast. We'll do an outline, and we'll try to stick to our outline just so we don't go a bunch of rabbit holes. But yeah, no, we don't. The only thing we do that is like scripted ahead of time is the Y minutes. And that's because we kind of have a stricter time frame on that. Yeah. And we've got to do certain things. And so I'll write out a script for that, but everything else is, outlines, if anything.
So you're not working off a transcript when you're doing the coffee mug thing?
No.
Dude, it's incredible. It really, really is. We have a college here that I want you to come teach at. We do week-long immersions. And so I'm going to need some of your time this year. So just need you to kind of block some time out.
All right. You're going to have me come back. I used to be stationed in Washington.
Well, you mentioned you're here when Dino ran. Was it Fort Lewis?
Yeah, I was in First Special Forces Group at Fort Lewis for 5 years.
Okay. Special Forces, what did you do in Special Forces?
So people oftentimes confuse this. There's Special Operations and then there's Special Forces. Okay. So there's a lot of things that fall under the umbrella of Special Operations. That could be Rangers, what's commonly referred to as Delta or SEAL Team 6, which, CAG, DevGru, all those guys. Air Force PJs, PSYOPs, Civil Affairs. That's all part of Special Operations. Okay. Special Forces are Green Berets, and Green Berets are Army Special Forces. We have 7 primary functions that we do, but the thing that we're really known for, the thing that makes us kind of different from the rest of the Special Operations community is unconventional warfare and counterinsurgency. And so what that means is that we operate by, through, and with the local population. So if we're conducting unconventional warfare, like what you saw in Afghanistan, where Green Berets go in and we're working with the Northern Alliance to overthrow the Taliban. That's unconventional warfare because we're working with the insurgents to overthrow the current government. Yeah. Then what I did over in Iraq in 2006, 2008 is I was working with the Iraqi government to defeat insurgent and terrorist organizations in the form of Al-Qaeda and whatnot. And so that's when you're working. So 12 Green Berets can be responsible for up to a 500-person battalion of troops. Typically, it's usually a little smaller than that. But like I worked with Iraqi scouts and Iraqi militia to go conduct counterterrorism and counterinsurgency operations in Iraq. So that's the way to think of Green Berets. A little fun colloquial one, if people understand the reference, is we're not so much John Rambo as much as we are Lawrence of Arabia. That's kind of like our operational model.
Force multipliers.
Yeah. It's an awesome job. I remember, being a 28, 29-year-old Green Beret with me and 5 other Green Berets and like 25 Iraqi Army and 25 Iraqi militia doing joint operations where, I'm the advisor for the Iraqi major. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
I've always thought the military is an incredible example of how much incredible things young people can do if given the proper training and a worthy mission to give their life to. Yeah. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I've never been in the military, but when I think about what you were doing, you would tend to think, let's have that guy be 45 or 50 so he's seasoned. You're over there at 24, 25, 26. Mm-hmm. Did you feel thrown in the deep end? I mean, did you feel prepared, equipped? I mean,
I felt very prepared. Going through that, here's I think you're right. When you say that there's something about, we have so extended adolescence in this country to where you don't get to be an adult until you're like 25, 26, if that. You're legally an adult like 18, but that just means we can tax you and throw you in jail. We don't give you the real responsibilities or expectations of adulthood. Well, I mean, I'm an 18-year-old. I turned 21 in Ranger School.
Wow.
And so there was always an like you get thrown into that environment at 17, 18, 19 years old, and there's no, let's see if we can walk you through this, little fella. It's like, hey, dumb it, get your crap in gear, like pick up the gun, let's go. And I think it was great because there's high stakes situations that you're going to be expected to be able to perform in. Wow. And so the training and the level of responsibility, and it did not feel weird to me to be 25 years old, sitting behind a 50 cal in Iraq, helping to train in Iraq, leading the training for an Iraqi scout platoon and then going and conducting combat operations. That was just what we did.
Wow.
And I go back, I did this reel a while back where I was talking to a room full of high schoolers and I said, how many of you are 16 or older? And like half the room raises their hand. I said, okay, I want to tell you what my grandpa was doing at 16. He was on his way to fight the Empire of Japan. Right?
That's right.
That's right. And it's not that I want 16-year-olds to have to fight anybody, but there's something about having that mindset that, well, of course, this is what you do. Your country needs you. And I'm 16, but we're needed. And so.
Yep. Do you have any, I haven't listened to a lot of your stuff, so maybe you've done a lot of clips on this or not, but do you have any like favorite memories that stand out from your time of service, or like a favorite story that you tell that you maybe haven't told before that you could share with our guys?
You know what? One thing I always like to insist on is that a lot of times people hear like special operations guy, Iraq combat veteran, and they think, oh my gosh, it must have been Fallujah 24/7. It wasn't. That was not my experience. I went on a lot of combat operations. There was only one time where I really felt like, oh man, I could die here, right? Most of the time we kick in the door, gun in the face, America, here to get you. And, the response was, I surrender, right? It wasn't, we didn't get a lot of people that wanted to get in desperate gunfights with Green Berets rolling into their house at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
But then there were other guys, and not special ops guys either, like infantry guys or medics or truck drivers or whatnot, that depending on where you were and the time you were there, you might have been facing IEDs every day or running gun battles through the street. And so I always like to make sure that we understand that, special ops in combat doesn't mean that you're fighting for your life 24/7. It could mean that or not. And I just never want to project something that is not true about me.
Yeah.
But I did have this one story where we were going out on an operation, and it was one where I was the senior Green Beret on the objective, and we had just done a couple of ops with our Iraqis. We had just collected a guy we were looking for who was kind of a lieutenant in this terrorist cell we were going for. And we checked one more house to see if the main guy, we knew it was a common bed down location, to see if the main guy was there. And it was the last thing we were going to do before we were going to go home. So my guys are there. I go in with the Iraqi major. The Iraqi major says, hey, I want to talk to her. Can I talk to her alone for a minute? Because if you're there, she might not. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Go ahead. So I walk into the other room. Explosion goes off, outside. This is right by the Tigris River.
Oh my goodness. 2
of our Iraqis are down. And because it's Iraqi army and Iraqi militia, half of our guys are wearing civilian clothes. So who's a good guy? Who's a bad guy? Right?
Oh my goodness.
But what was amazing about that moment, I mean, long story short, we ended up getting the bad guy. He ended up being the guy. Like at one point, I think he was in the top 10 or 15 in the Iraqi most wanted. And but the thing that I remember from that, one of the things I remember from that was just so incredible was without having to say anything, every one of the Green Berets in my unit, everyone did exactly what they were supposed to do.
Let's go.
And I always say that in that moment, if there had been a recruiter on the objective, I would have signed away the rest of my life right there on the spot, because this was one of those moments where I had been in a lot of situations with these guys, but they never escalated to this point. And now, now the moment it escalates, and we've got an Iraqi scout platoon we've done some limited training with. We've got Iraqi militia we met that morning.
Wow.
And everybody is doing exactly what they need to do, coordinating, getting helicopter gunships up and down the Tigris. We get our guy, and I just remember thinking, this is what I signed up for.
Let's go. Pass the test.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite. And there's a whole lot more to it, but it was a great.
So one of my, I was raised not to live my life with regrets, and thanks for God I have very few, if any. But one of my regrets is that I did not. Was not able to serve my nation in the military. I'm doing some things now with the White House that is allowing me to scratch that itch that I'm very proud of and excited to give energy to. But it wasn't the path I was on at the time. But I have great respect for men who have served in the military. The last 4 years, 6 years, whatever you want to say, when young men ask me, like, should I go into the military? I don't have any experience, but I have not known how to answer that question. So I tagged John in on that. And I was not surprised to hear him be reticent to that. Like, I'm not sure if we're the good guys all the time out there now. And the standards are dropping, all these things. So those of us watching from the outside in with no experience in military have felt as if the standards are dropping, the morale is low. And then Trump is reelected, and Pete Hegseth, who's a wonderful, godly man and follower of Jesus, becomes our Secretary of War. From the outside looking in, I'm very encouraged about the direction of our military. What are your thoughts? You've been in politics and in the military. What kind of advice, I guess, this is less political commentary, more personal advice to young men. We have thousands of young men listening to this show. They're wanting to give their life to something that matters. Would the military track be one track that you would encourage them to consider? My son just completed infantry training at Fort Benning, Georgia, and is there right now waiting to go to his next unit. So, and he enlisted. It was interesting because we were going through this process of him. We never pushed the military. And when he did decide to go in, I thought he was going to go into something a little bit more technical. And then when he said, nope, I want to go infantry, and I think I eventually want to go special ops. Wow. I said, okay. And kind of walked him through the process. And I remember my wife and I having this conversation because he was looking to sign paperwork in October of last year. Oof. So right before the election. Right before the election. Are you going to get President Harris or President Trump? Yeah. And Tina said, well, should we wait? And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean we? We're not the ones signing. He's got to make a decision. Our job was to raise him in the way that he should go. And if he feels that God is calling him to this purpose, then it doesn't matter if it's Trump or Harris, if this is what God is calling him to do. And if he feels that strongly, and he does, it is what it is. He's a man. That's right. He'll always be our son, but he's not our child anymore. Let's go. And so he enlisted before the election. I think he did that intentionally. He did that intentionally. And so he was very, very happy with the outcome. I might have got him into a little bit of trouble because when I went down for his they have a basic training graduation and then an infantry graduation. When I went down for basic training, I did a post on X, and Pete Hegseth
commented on the post and said, "Congratulations, Luke, you're what makes the country great."
Wow.
And somebody else came in and said, "Oh, great, Luke's boss just commented."
Totally. He's a marked man.
Right before he goes to infantry school. I'm sure he won't get hazed for that.
No pressure.
But
Wow.
Luke did well, completed infantry school, and look. Here's what I'm going to say. Obviously, we are called. God gave us a mind to use, and He expects us to properly analyze a situation and to make decisions which kind of make sense. But He also gave us the Holy Spirit, and He did it for a reason. And this has been a tough thing in my life to recognize that there's going to be times where the answer isn't necessarily clear.
Yes.
So I know, first of all, if it violates God's ordinances, his law, well, then I don't do it. I don't care what the enticement or the intimidation is. I don't do it. If it's unclear and there's multiple paths that could be taken, well, then my job is to analyze those things, but to always start that process with prayer. And like, okay, God, what is the answer? The way I like to pray to God is like, God, I want to be used. I want to be obedient. Can you please make the obedient path the clear one? Not the easy one, but can you make it the clear? Can you make it the obvious choice?
That's right.
And I've tried to convey that to my son as well, and I think he's done an excellent job. I look now, my son is so much more mature in his faith at his age than I was at the same age. So what I would tell you is, look, I look back very, very fondly on my military service. I think it is an excellent way to not only serve your country, but to learn necessary skill sets, to become responsible, to become punctual, to be able to handle difficult situations. I think there's a lot of things within the military that do a very, very good job of preparing you for manhood if you can view it through the proper lens, that just because you're in the military doesn't mean you get to excuse things which are common to military culture.
Yes.
So if you can remain strong in your faith, I think the military has an incredible amount to offer. But ultimately, you got to make that decision based off of what you think God is leading you to do.
Yes. Are you encouraged with the direction you see our military taking currently?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Woo!
Yes. I
no
think
fat generals.
I think it is arguably. I think arguably you could say it's the best time. One of the best times to serve.
Yes.
In part because I think Pete Hegseth has the right overall mindset with respect to what is the military there for.
Right.
I have some friends that are, I'm a little concerned about the Department of War. I'm like, I am not. And look, I tend to take more of a non-interventionist foreign policy. I don't think we should be isolationists, but I also don't think we need to rush around the world trying to be the policeman. By the same token, why does the military exist? It exists, as Rush Limbaugh so eloquently put it, to kill people and break things. Right? That is why we have a military. And the
Such
mindset,
a way with words.
Yes, and the mindset should be our job is to kill people and break things so effectively that nobody wants to be the object of our killing or breaking. Right? That's what we want.
So good.
If we're really, really good, we might not have to fight at all. But if we do fight, let's do it as fast, effective, and with saving as much human life on both sides.
That's right.
As humanly possible. And I think Pete has that mindset. And I think Trump also understands something. Trump has run afoul of certain people that previously supported him because of the strikes in Iran and everything else. And it's amazing to me to watch people that don't seem to understand that Trump is different in the way that he uses military force. Yeah. Trump feels zero obligation. Trump looks at the military as this is, from a practical standpoint, this is a tool, which is an object of foreign policy and national defense. But on a moral level, it is also comprised of living flesh and blood human beings that I want to protect.
That's right.
Now, how do we merge these two things? Because you got to send those flesh and blood human beings into harm's way. That's the reason for the organization. It's the reason why it exists. Yeah. I once heard a commander, he was briefing his troops before they went to Iraq or Afghanistan, and he said, my mission is to bring everyone home alive. Well, then you're an idiot, and you shouldn't be commanding.
That's
not
right.
because that's not a noble goal. But your mission is to go enforce U.S. policy.
That's right.
And if you don't got the stomach for that, if your only mission is to bring everyone home alive, don't leave. Easy. Mission accomplished.
That's right.
Right? We got an important job to do. But I love having a president that realizes that I will use the United States military and all of its lethality when necessary in pursuit of legitimate, valid, moral U.S. interests.
Yes.
Which, oh, by the way, may coincide with other countries' interests at some time too, right? That's not a
That's
bad
right.
thing.
That's right.
But I'm going to use it, accomplish the objective, and come home. I feel Trump feels zero impulse to try to turn Iran into a functioning liberal democracy. That is not his objective, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so I think that mindset of what is the military for, and therefore what should we train, and then having a president that uses it carefully but forcefully when appropriate. That is something that I did not have when I was in the military. We had the Bush administration, but there was a lot of problems there. And then so I served during Clinton, during Bush, and then I got out several months after Obama got into office. But yeah.
It's interesting. Bush used to be a hero, and not that we don't need to go down this road, but just as you said that, the dining room conversation, if you can meet anybody living and have a conversation, and I would always say, George Bush, I love the guy, stand on the rubbles. We hear you, our nation hears you, and soon those who tore these buildings down will hear us too. And that moment of just national pride and unity, and finally we're going to go do something. And then you start looking back on it, and especially in contrast with the Trump administration, who's not just this kind of generic God, family, country guy, but explicitly Christian, acknowledging the roots of our nation as distinctly and uniquely Christian, speaking the name of Jesus Christ more than I've heard 10 politicians mention in my lifetime, and then actually being a president of peace. I mean, if the guy doesn't get the Nobel Peace Prize is a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just working for peace across the world, and then when it was needed, stepped in and used that lethality of our military with precision to essentially turn the Top Gun Maverick movie into a reality. Is so incredible. When I look at that, where was I going with my question? Oh, my views kind of changed on how I used to view Bush in trying to democratize the whole world.
Yeah.
Why do that? That's kind of like this weird colonizing thing. It's like, no, just use our military to protect us, keep us safe, and others can follow suit if they want.
No, I think it's, look, I try to be very, very careful on understanding that there is a general trend within somebody's life, but then there can also be punctuated by moments that I respect or that I appreciate. And when he stood on the rubble and said that, same way. I had the same feeling, right?
Yeah.
I felt unified. I felt like we were not going to just let this happen to us and not strike back. Like there was all kinds of positive things about that. And I can appreciate that moment, and I can appreciate that I what he did and how he behaved in that moment. And I can be frustrated with other things. I do the same thing with Donald Trump. Right? There's so many things that I appreciate. But on the overall trend,
That's right.
I've become much more jaded about George Bush's administration, and I've become much more positive and much more appreciative of Donald Trump's approach and administration.
So let's talk about Christian nationalism. It's this buzz phrase. I heard you give a really good kind of rant. I don't know if it was a clip or a reel about you kind of realized you had an epiphany that they don't want dialogue. They just want a label so they can dismiss us. I don't know if you remember that clip. I'm trying to debate. They're trying to diagnose. That was it. Such great. You have a great way with words, bro. Very, very great handles. Christian nationalism, of course, you've been accused of it, I've been accused of it. My buddies, I've been doing some podcasts to kind of dispel it. And as soon as we remove the boogeyman of it, my prediction is, you heard it here first, they'll stop using it.
Yeah.
But as soon as it becomes a label that doesn't come with baggage, they'll find something else. And so I'm suggesting that militant dominionist. I'm totally on board with that.
I posted out on X a while back. I said, I want Christendom back.
Totally. So Christian nationalism, how would you define it? Is it bad for the country?
Yeah.
What is the boogeyman of Christian nationalism? How have you experienced it?
It depends on how you define it, is the real problem, because Christian nationalism can carry a whole host of connotations. I remember people telling me like, oh, that Doug Wilson guy, watch out for that Doug Wilson guy. And I was like, I just want to hear what Doug Wilson has to say for Doug Wilson. I'm tired of hearing everyone else talk about it. So I did. I did an interview with Doug Wilson as part of a series that we're putting out next month where we're talking about what should the right want.
Yes.
And here's what I would say. Let's get this part out right away. If someone chooses to define Christian nationalism as a select group of clerics runs the country based off of their interpretation of their religion, or of Christianity. No, I don't want that. I don't support that. That's not what I want, right?
That's right.
I don't want a man-controlled theocracy, right? That's not what I'm looking for. If you mean Christian nationalism as a Christian, I would like Christian morality to inform the culture, the politics, and the law of my country. Yeah, that's kind of how America was founded. When Leviticus is one of the most commonly referenced sources of material when constructing the Constitution, it would have been a completely foreign concept to our founders that religion should not play any sort of influential role in the construction of the civil or the civics.
Yeah. But Nick, the separation of church and state. Talk to us how you could justify this, what you just said, when we all value the separation of church and state. You and I both think this is silly, but unpack it. Why is that stupid?
So for anybody that doesn't know, the reference letter between Thomas Jefferson and was it the Danbury Baptists? I forget what New England state it was. I think Connecticut, maybe Vermont.
Connecticut. I actually met the president of the Danbury Association at the West Wing last month. Actually, the day before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And it's like 10,000 churches now. It's an association working explicitly for engaging and activating the church in the political realm, and they call themselves a Danbury Association. In particular, because of this letter that you're going to reference that Jefferson sent to them. So carry on.
Yeah, he was. So what Danbury was concerned, what the Danbury Baptists were concerned of, was this idea that the federal government was going to essentially use its authority to impose a particular type of denomination or interpretation of Scripture or religion. Now, it's important to understand that the founding, most states, Virginia was an exception to this because Thomas Jefferson wrote the Statute of Religious Liberty. Most states did have some sort of religious test to be able to serve in office. So it's not that the founders across the board had a problem with religious tests to serve in office. They just didn't they didn't think that was the responsibility of the federal authority, this new creation of the federal government. Yes. And so Jefferson is assuring them that there is a wall of separation between church and state with respect to the state imposing, the federal government imposing some sort of religious dogma or forced subsidization standard, whatever it is. Now, most states over time, I think by the 1830s, had removed the various religious tests, and for obvious reasons, right? Because then all of a sudden you get into this thing where it's like, okay, I can be a Bible-believing Christian, but I'm not allowed to serve unless I'm a Lutheran or unless I'm, that would be problematic. And we had violent outbreaks between denominations in this country, Christian denominations in this country. Virginia was an example of this. Culpeper, where I live, had that happen. So it's important to understand that the idea was, and as a Jefferson articulated in Virginia, was this idea that it is not the role of the state to compel you to believe something which may violate your faith, your conscience, or things of that nature. That's not the proper role of the state. Well, but it was never. Go ahead.
No, to your point. They were talking about arguments and disagreements between Presbyterians and Baptists, between Methodists and between Anglicans. This was not between Christianity and Islam. No. This was not between Christianity and secularism. They were preventing the government from speaking into intramural Protestant conversations. That's like, hey, if you believe in baptizing infants, we don't want the federal government saying you can't.
Yes.
To your point, I interrupted you, just keep going.
No,
but I think that's an important point to note. People don't realize this wasn't even how George Bush has talked about it. And I think, will we reclaim this? I don't know. But religious freedom does not mean extra. Like I think Islam is fundamentally incompatible with our Constitution, with America, with Christianity, with the West.
Yes.
And so that's an interesting conversation to go, well, did religious freedom and liberty mean mosques wherever you want? Right? Secularism is a religion, and it's aggressively taken over our public schools, and they're preaching a dogma.
Yes.
Sorry, I got us off track here because you were continuing to unpack the purpose of separation of state.
It all goes to what you're saying. It's this. The problem is that a proper interpretation of what the founders were talking about. This, what people even like Jefferson, who was one of the least religious of the founders, even though he was still religious. would have said that again. It's not the role of government to compel religious belief or to subsidize religious belief through taxation.
That's right.
But the idea that religious belief would not influence someone's politics would have been seen as absurd. That would have been
That's right.
with maybe everyone except for Thomas Paine. That would have been seen as completely ridiculous. Never was that in the American political tradition. They tried to make it in the French Revolution's tradition, but it was never a part of the American tradition. And the reason why is very simple. Whenever somebody says you can't legislate morality, I always look back at them and say, actually, it's all we legislate.
That's right.
And they look at me confused, like, what, you mean jaywalking law? Yes. Every single law. Every single law is predicated upon some moral premise.
That's right.
And so the question is what are you going to use as the source of that moral premise? If you're telling me all I can use is secular liberalism or secular atheism, then what you've just said is I'm not allowed to have an objective standard for morality.
Yes. That's right.
Or even an objective standard for truth, because secular atheism cannot, by definition, it cannot provide an objective standard for morality or for truth. It can provide consensus, but it can't provide objective standards. So a faithful atheist will tell you that they can't say murder is wrong. They can say they don't prefer it. They can say they think it produces less than desirable results, but they can't call it wrong or evil because those are moral terms. And atheism doesn't provide us with moral terms. It just provides us at best with utilitarian terms. So you will not find a single founding father who was writing the Declaration of Independence or writing the Constitution that would ever say that religious thought can't influence the political realm. Of course it can. It just can't. We just can't compel people with it, which is interesting because that's also something of a religious tradition, a Christian tradition. Now, people always fight back and say, "Oh, what about the Crusades? Or what about this? Or what about that? Or what?" I'm not saying that everybody claiming to be a Christian has got everything right, even though I'm not claiming that the Crusades were all wrong. I'm just saying that.
We'll have you back to talk about that.
Oh yeah, no. I have a very unpopular view of the Crusades, but to the point I'm talking about here.
Just because it's right, doesn't mean it's always going to be popular.
Exactly. But what I like to point out is that you don't want to live. Richard Dawkins of all people has discovered this.
That's right.
Richard Dawkins has recently come out and say, I want to live in a Christian culture. He doesn't want to accept the lordship of Christ, and Christian culture does not compel him to, because it would be heretical for me to use the power of the state to compel you to be a Christian. That can't happen, right? You have to make a conscious decision.
That's right.
So that's what we mean by that. So again, if we properly understand that all law derives from some sort of appeal to morality.
That's right.
And if you're telling me that I can't use any source of religious morality, then what you leave me with is secular morality.
That's right.
And that is, I'm sorry, but secular morality does not produce better results. And so from an objective standpoint, from a standpoint of what I believe to be true, and just from a practical standpoint, to exclude any sort of religious thought from the discussion on what is moral and therefore what should be legal or civil is nonsensical. It's a non-starter.
That's right. Well, there's a couple things. I think one, Christians have to think more Christians have to think in more sophisticated terms in relationship to Christianity and politics. And one of the kind of the psyops that gets run is the Christian positions should be neutral. Our public schools should be neutral. Secularism is neutral. And the lie that I believe that the demonic lie that has been thrust on the church and that many have believed is that secularism is neutral.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's come to this neutral ground of secularism, and then we can all live there. Newsflash, secularism is not neutral. Secularism is a worldview. Secularism is a religion. Secularism has a God. Yeah. And so when we think about legislating morality, like you said, when they say you can't legislate morality, to be very clear, as we're talking about this, we do not think you can legislate someone into heaven or save someone from hell. But you can legislate in such a way as to save our society from living in hell while we're here on earth by bringing the commands of heaven and implementing them in the Kuyperian, spheres of sovereignty and family and church and politics, as he so eloquently unpacks. So Christians have to think in a more sophisticated way in terms of when I'm being told you can't legislate morality, What they're actually saying is, we don't want you to legislate your morality.
Yeah,
and so it becomes a psyop where like you don't get to speak in the public square, but we get to speak in the public square. And when Christians go silent, the demons keep arguing. The demons keep talking.
Vodi Bakum pointed this out. He goes, it's not that they don't want people to claim the name of Christ in the public sphere. They just don't want Christians to claim the name of Christ in the public sphere. If you get up there, as an LGBTQ activist and you say, as a Christian, I believe Jesus would have think this was outside. They are happy to let you talk.
Wow.
They're happy to let you reference your Christianity as long as you're saying something that Christ would never say.
Bro, that's huge. Do you know, if you don't want to comment on this, I'm not quite sure what's appropriate, not appropriate, but there's a guy running for office in Texas, and I can't remember his name, but he talks about Jesus all the time. He's a snake in the grass. He is advocating for everything the Bible stands against, but he's doing it in the name of Christianity.
I know what you're talking about. I saw he was on Joe Rogan, I think.
He was on Joe Rogan, and I don't. We'll grab another clip later, but he's the kind of guy I think of when you talk about that.
Yeah.
Now, did you know Vodi? Did you know Vodi Bakum?
One of my lifetime. There's two people that I've really desperately wanted to meet that I haven't met yet, and one of them now I will never meet. One of them was Vodi, and the other is Thomas Sowell. I love both of those guys, and
what a legend.
But I think Vodi pointed out that it's like, no, you are the left, the secular atheistic left, invites you to talk about religion and Christ, provided that it advances their agenda. Then they're totally fine with it. And so this is the part where I think Christians need to wake up to the fact that, look, we have been taught that, that the religious stays out of the politics or stays out of the public place. That's private. No, it isn't. Their worldview, I'll tell you, take religion out of it and just say worldview.
Yes.
The secular atheist worldview seems to believe that it has a right to go anywhere, say whatever it wants, and advocate for whatever it wants. And then it's told the rest of us to sit in our little boxes. Well, I'm not going to do that. I don't accept your premise.
Yes.
I especially don't accept it from a worldview that can't even give me a moral framework, an objective moral framework for which to justify that premise.
That's
and
right.
so my attitude is this. When it comes to Christian nationalism, if by Christian nationalism you mean that Christians who are called to be salt and light should be active within the civic space and should want Christian morality to be reflected within their politics, then yes, I think it makes perfect sense. And I don't think you would have found a single founder that would have disagreed with that. The moment you want to use Christianity to impose a acceptance of Christianity, I believe that is heretical.
Yes.
But can I use the 10 Commandments to inform my legal theories? Yeah. Why wouldn't I? Again,
why would it be
the
heretical?
left does it with everything other than Christianity. Why can't I do it with Christianity?
Totally. Why would it be heretical? Unpack that.
Oh, I think it would be heretical to use the sword to compel Christianity.
Yes.
So if I were to say
Why?
you must accept Christ as king, or I will kill you, or I will imprison you, or I will fine you, right?
Yep.
Because in Islam that you can pay the tax, you can convert, or you can pay the tax, right? But you will. I don't believe that I have the right to use the civil authorities to compel you to claim Christ.
Yes.
I think that is something that is and the justification I use for that is God alone actually has the authority to compel our hearts and minds.
Amen.
Has the authority and chose not to.
Wow.
And so far be it from me to assume that authority for myself through the sword.
Yeah. That's really good, man. So in relationship to Christians, politics, and the church, I'm a pastor. I've had a long growing frustration with my fellow brothers of the cloth who have an unwillingness to speak with clarity to this issue. And I will say for the many listening, there's kind of this 3.0 church planner, like Driscoll was 1.0 of my generation. My generation is kind of 2.0. There's a 3.0 coming, like that 25 to 35 year old. And bro, they're differentiated, they're dialed, they've walked away from denominations because they see the natural enmeshment of these groups that get together and what are you going to say, or what are you going to say, or what should I say? And the cowardice of the crowd kind of becomes the path of least resistance. They're differentiated from denominations, they're bold, they're clear, they're running churches of thousands, 10,000s, they're preaching clear. So I'm very excited about the future. But what would you say as a soldier, as a citizen, as a politician, as a Christian brother who sits in church week after week? What do you want to hear from the pulpits of America? Speak to us as pastors about what you want to hear.
Here's what I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear a political advertisement for a party.
Yes.
Right? I don't want that. Here's the way I put it. God is not partisan, but he's not neutral on the issues.
That's right.
And if one political party makes it a part of their platform to reject what God says about reality, and another political party with all of its flaws at least attempts to have some semblance of recognition of it, well, then it should be pretty obvious on a candidate by candidate, issue by issue basis, who it makes sense to vote for. So I would say that I think it would be not only incredibly safe, but appropriate for pastors to say, look, these are things that as Christians we cannot accept. Right? If we have politics, and again, can we also understand that no politician is perfect? Yep. Right? We're all fallen, and so sometimes they can get it right on some things and wrong on other things. And what I would appreciate pastors to do is essentially say there are some things for which we can have disagreements. Should the tax rate be 10% or 12%? We can have disagreements on that all day long. Yep. Should the road go here or here? Easy, right?
Yeah.
Should you be able to chemically castrate a gender-confused 9-year-old? No. That's immoral. It's evil. There's no justification for it. Yes. There's no gray area, right? Yes. No. Can you kill babies in the womb? No. Right? Yes. This is easy. These are not complicated issues.
Yeah.
Right? And I think we should at least be able to say, if you have a candidate that is openly advocating for the destruction and mutilation of innocent human life as a core component of their political platform, that's probably not someone as a Christian, regardless of what political party they claim, you should vote for.
That's
now, the part where I get sympathetic to pastors is this. There's a lot of cases where you can theoretically...
Don't give us too much sympathy. We haven't earned it, so be careful here.
The part where I'm sympathetic is, this is the part where I understand why pastors might not want to endorse a candidate from the pulpit.
Right.
That's because now when you endorse a candidate, it's almost this feeling like, am I endorsing everything they've ever done, everything they're doing right now, and everything they're going to do?
Yeah.
I completely understand when a pastor says, look, I don't want to get into the position of candidates calling me up trying to tell me what they think I want to hear to get my endorsement.
That's right. Yep.
But I do think it's appropriate to say, as a Christian, these things are biblically unacceptable.
That's right.
Here's the verse. Here's where God says it. If you vote for this, understand you're inviting judgment.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And by contrast, there could be candidates that are studying positive things or good things where you can say these things are good. Yeah. But I think that at a bare minimum of basically saying God is not neutral on the issues, and here's in Scripture where He tells us what God thinks about this thing. Now that I've told you that as your pastor, you should go out and vote or act appropriately. Well, I think that's perfectly appropriate.
And thanks be to God, with the Trump administration, the Johnson Amendment has had its teeth removed. And so, because let's just be honest, the progressive liberal left have been using churches to stump as political platforms for years.
Yes.
And conservatives are like, well, we can't because we might lose our tax exempt status. First of all, that should never come into your decision-making quadrant at all. Now you're being a coward. Now you're placating power. Now you're giving up power to politics. But secondly, that's never happened once in the history of our country.
No, because it's unconstitutional. They don't want the Supreme Court to overturn it. They want the intimidation of it on the books. That's why they utilize it. But
that's exactly right.
We need to continue to, and people don't understand that a lot of legislation that goes on the books is never enforced, but they want the intimidation there, so you just voluntarily choose to self-regulate.
Bro.
And
or they selectively enforce.
Yes,
during COVID, our governor put in 1,800 different executive orders. You couldn't possibly follow all the rules, and you realize He's putting them there not to enforce all of them, but to have it if he needs to. So he can selectively enforce and hammer someone who is against him.
It is the Stalin-esque. It is the Stalin-esque. You show me the man, and I'll show you the crime. Like
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And what we argued was that this is devaluing rule of law as a whole, and so it was a real problem. Okay, last thing here. A ton of young folks listening to this. We have just a rising army of 14, 16, 18, 22-year-olds who are biblical, who are intelligent, who understand the importance of reason and logic and rhetoric and read books and study culture and want to give their life to things that matter. It's just Strongman Nation is a remarkable thing. And we're just a small pocket. We're seeing this, of course, ripple across the whole country. What would you tell a young person about, how do I frame the question? Would you encourage them to get into politics early? Or do you think it's a season of life, act of service you do later in life?
I think before you ever do any of that, if you are not building your life upon your faith, then any decision you make is going to essentially, it's not going to produce the results that you want. It may produce what is generally considered desirable results. You may make more money, you may get the girl, you may get, I don't know, right? You may get accolades, whatever it is. But it's not going to give you peace, and it's not going to give you joy in what you're actually doing. What I would tell young men right now, and amazingly enough, they are figured this out, because the polls are showing that young men are more religious than we've been polling this since the 1970s.
That's right.
They realize that the bigger issue that they have to answer in their life before they do anything else is, who am I? Why am I here? Who made me? And what does he want from me?
That's right. That's right.
When you get your identity in Christ, all of the other things, whether it be good or bad, you can either celebrate with a good conscience, or you can suffer with joy.
That's right.
And so the biggest question that they have to answer before they ever get into the political realm, because I have seen people work so diligently in politics only to lose their family as a result. Why? Because they had thought that, well, if we can just save the next election, if we can just get the next person elected, that is going to save all this other stuff. Dude, if you lost your kids to a university system while you were fighting to elect a president, I got news for you. You may have got people to vote for this guy, but you lost the 3 votes in your house that really, really mattered.
That's right.
And
That's
so
good,
first and foremost, understand, your identity in Christ. Understand exactly what that means, because, ladies and gentlemen, it ain't an easy life. I'm not promising you an easy life. If you look at what a Christian man is supposed to be, you are supposed to be strong, you are supposed to be capable, you are supposed to be competent. It is an impossibly high standard that you will forever be better for simply by reaching for it.
Yes.
And in the process of developing yourself to be what a Christian man is supposed to be, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, physically, and professionally. As you do that, what you're supposed to do next starts to become obvious.
That's right.
And then you're prepared for the thing that you're supposed to do.
That's right.
So stop trying to pick a noble mission and asking God to join you, and start asking God what mission he has for you, and prepare for that. And then it won't matter. And then it won't matter what field you go into. It won't matter what struggles you face. You will not get your identity in the accolades, and you will not get your identity in the criticisms. You will get your identity in Christ, and that will be what weathers everything. I can sit now and look, my wife of 26 years, 3 kids that we absolutely love. We've been through a lot. And at no point did I ever lose my sense of who I was or who I belonged to. At no point was our marriage ever in danger. At no point was I ever terrified that my kids were going to go off the deep end or get indoctrinated. No, why? Was it because Nick was just so smart and capable? I promise you that was not the case. The most important question that I answered for my life, that my wife and I answered for our marriage, and that we ended up answering for our kids, is who's in charge? And it's God.
Wow.
And the moment we answered that, and the moment we settled on that, we made all kinds of mistakes, but one of the surest signs of God's existence, in my opinion, is how much he blesses imperfect efforts to try to be obedient.
Yeah. Dude, I love you, Nick Freitas. I love you deeply.
Okay, time to go.
Can someone get us a pillow? We're gonna pray. No, I have this experience often. I think Christians are the best people in the world, and I say that because Christians are filled with the spirit and power of the best man who ever walked the planet. Mm-hmm. And when I look at who you are and how you've lived and how you've loved your wife and how you've led your children, and we didn't get into parenting, but we're going to have you back and do that again. How you've loved your daughters, how you've loved your son, how you've loved your Savior, served your country, and now continue to serve it. It's a remarkable thing. I'm grateful for your example. I'm grateful for your humor. I'm grateful that I have a generation of young men they can look to, including my two sons, and look at you and go, that's what it means to follow Jesus. That's what it means to be a stronger man. I'm hanging up today even more excited than I was when I woke up that I get to be on Team Jesus because I get to do it with guys like you. And so it's been a great honor to have you today, buddy. And I want to have you back soon if you'd have me.
No, the honor's all mine. Would love to have you on as well, because I think when people ask me why I'm hopeful, I say when I see all the evidence of young men going back into the church, young men wanting families, young men looking for something noble, and even tragic events like Charlie's death, all pointing them toward the cross, I'm like, see, this is the leading indicator, right? This is the leading indicator where it's like, gosh, all right, I'm excited. So thank you for everything you have done and what you continue to do, because it is important. It's not just important. It's the thing, right?
That's right.
It's the thing. Everything else works itself out once people get the priorities right.
That's right. I tell our church all the time, the kingdom of God advances steadily through a series of glorious victories, cleverly disguised as devastating defeats.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I lost Congress. Oh, God gave me a network to build an army to reach 10 times the people in your story. So I love you, bro. Give sharing my love to your bride. I'd love to meet her one day.
Absolutely. You do the same, and thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Hey, everyone. Pastor Josh here. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate the podcast, review, follow, and share. And if you want to support Stronger Man Nation, you can go to strongermannation.com/give to help keep unwoke, uncensored, straight talk Bible teaching coming to you for free.